Hey everybody, welcome to another OnCourt OffCourt Game Changers. Very excited today to be joined by, of course, our CMO, Kalindi Dinoffer, and Gregg Le Sueur of online tennis instruction and co-creator of a really cool product we're going to dive in on a little later. Greg, Kalindi, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much,
Yeah,
Billy, and thanks, Greg, for being here.
yeah, my pleasure. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, thanks to a technical glitch a moment ago, I was able to say your last name better than the first time I gave it a run. So,
Yeah, maybe it's for a reason, right?
had to got the redo. That I think that's a my Wi-Fi was offended at how poorly I said it the first time. So
And your authenticity and integrity is so high that you had to admit
I
to that
did. I
previous
did. I had to
mistake
throw
for
myself
all of
back
our
under the
viewers
bus.
to
I
hear.
wasn't going to get away with that one so easily. And yeah, awesome. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. And like we do with pretty much all of our guests. I mean, Greg, really the first thing that we'd love to just chat is just kind of your origin story. How did you get into the game of tennis? What was that like? How did that lead into instruction and coaching and various things? And so, would you mind just sharing a little bit of kind of how you got into the game and some of that experience, how your experiences were?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'll try to keep it really short. So if I go on, just let me know.
This has got your name on it, so you go for it, Greg.
Which is a little bit about me. Actually, I come from a pretty good tennis lineage, and my mother was a really good tennis player, and she was a founding player of the WTA. Yeah, so they had the original nine, and they added seven, and she was part of that to make it 16. So she played from 1966 to 1974. She played all the Grand Slams, nine Wimbledons. So, I was kind of brought up with the game of tennis. I think my earliest memory of a tennis court was my parents had this squash racket, the wooden squash racket, and it was cut to make a little racket. And they would go out every Sunday with my brother and sister. I'm the youngest of three, and they would play on Sundays. And I would be batting a tennis ball. And I must have been crawling in diapers. I don't know, nappies as we say in South Africa, hitting the ball in the back, playing more hockey or anything, more like hockey, should I say. And then they would just toss me a couple of balls, and then tennis was over and go home. So I think I was brought up in tennis at a very, very young age. Growing up in South Africa, you play all sports. There's none of this specializing at age 8 or something like this. You played everything from rugby to cricket to soccer, to large track, and then tennis. Of course, my mom, when she stopped playing, she ended up teaching tennis. So when I was done with after school sports, I always ended up at the tennis club. So I just grew up in every single lesson, and there's actually some stories where this is when I was a little bit younger. People come up to me and say, "I remember when you were like a kid in a carry cot. I was in the corner of the tennis courts, and my mom would say, 'Hey, just don't hit Greg.'" Yeah, so I mean, I literally grew up watching tennis balls. So I guess after end up specializing in tennis at 14, came to the US, had a wonderful opportunity, play college tennis and earn a college degree. I'm very thankful for that. My degree was in business finance. And after college, I decided I wanted to play some futures. It kind of took like a turn away from the sort of business world. Yeah, kind of in that experience, I was very lucky to be surrounded by a friend of mine, Raven Clausen, who, long story short, but he had asked him to train me to help me with my own game. And that opened up this whole world of fact-based instruction. So, Raven then went on to get top 7 in the world doubles. He made 2 Grand Slam finals in doubles and 200 in the world singles. So he was a very accomplished tennis player. And yeah, so that kind of set my journey looking for the best tennis instruction out there. And I actually ended up in Atlanta. I met worked for Ashley Hobson. He's actually a former PBI pro, and that's where I first heard about Joe and OnCourt OffCourt. This was back in like 2008, and it's really a neat story. Ashley was telling me that because Joe was a PBI pro, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was for many years.
and that and Ashley tells me he remembers seeing at Joe at conferences, and he would be out there with selling his products, and he said one day I'm going to make this into a business. So here we are, fast forward all these years later, and it's just amazing to hear that entrepreneurial spirit and just see all the wonderful products which OnCourt OffCourt have created and put together, and we'll get into it. But when you see these products, you think it's so easy to get these, designed, made, shipped, and ready to go. But there's a lot that goes in the back end, as we'll get into. And we'll come back to that part. But I ended up working for a guy, studying with a guy named Steve Smith for almost 3.5 years. And I really got my grounding in fact-based instruction, and then went on to run a club and an academy. And that's when I joined OTI as now the director of coaching. I've been there for 10 years. We make video courses, and we analyze videos from players. They send them in of their strokes from all over the world. So every day we look at strokes and we analyze it and give them feedback and direct them to our specific courses, videos in our courses on what to look at and how to work on improving. And then from that, it kind of developed into this live instruction where we travel and do a lot of live clinics around the US and sometimes in different places around the world. So that's a little wrap up there. So I hope it was under 5 minutes.
That was fantastic. Thank you. And you mentioned a couple of times the phrase fact-based instruction. Is that right?
Yeah.
What is fact-based instruction?
Yeah. So, it's instruction that's based on research. I have to give credit to Vic Braden, the late Vic Braden. Certainly in the English-speaking world, I don't know anyone who's studied tennis as much as he has. From my understanding through Raven is, he started filming pros back in the 60s, and he realized that, hey, these players, they look different, but they get into these similar positions. So he started asking questions. So he got in, physicists and biomechanists and mathematicians and a guy named Ariel, I think it is. And they studied and said, well, why are these players that are the best in the world, why do they all get in similar positions? And they figured out that's the best way to hit a tennis ball. So from that derived, these fundamentals based on, Vic's words, court dimensions and physical laws. And that's what dictates stroke production. And and he says, no, you need theory or any opinions. So it's all based on, the court's the same, the size, the angles, I won't get into the details, biomechanics, and then certainly I think the game is involved, but there's certain things, we cannot negate. So, so it was really interesting. My whole life as a tennis player, I'll just kind of why this sparked my interest was that I hit the ball really hard, had a big serve, big forehand, and I was all I wanted to do was get to the net. I grew up watching Ed Berg, and everyone told me, you got to be more patient. You're too erratic, be more patient. But that was it, and Raven really broke it down to me what patience was, what percentage tennis was, and along with that, his famous lines to me: to execute tactics, need technique, and that's so that's kind of where it all comes together. So with mechanics, you can execute strategy. Yeah, but awesome. We're not just making it up.
Yeah. So it kind of went from you being a receiver of this type of instruction to now you being someone who's now kind of a coach and being able to help others in that. So you kind of received, and then obviously it meant a lot to you because now that's something that you're continuing through the other side of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. When I stopped playing, I played futures, for about 2 years. And when I got done playing, I had the choice to get into the finance world or stay in coaching. And, I remember giving some lessons, and, it's like, I'm on the court and I'm like, I'm actually getting paid to do this. I mean, this is so much fun. I really enjoy this. And, I really enjoyed helping people. And, in my own journey, my mom was a great player, but she was also always looking to improve her craft. So I grew up watching her, always trying to learn from others. And suddenly when we stumbled across the teachers, Vic Braden was like, hey, this makes sense. And I thought, I want to dive deeper and share this with other people and help them that had similar dreams and aspirations as I did. Yeah, so you picked up very well on that. So yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I'm also, maybe I'm making an assumption here, but being in business finance, obviously that's a, more math and science side of things where it's like there's cause and effect, there's this, there's that, 2 + 2 is 4. And kind of in this, sounds like with this fact-based construction, you're kind of applying the same thing. Like you're saying, like the law of physics, the biomechanics, and then even percentages, right? What is percentagely the best time to stay back at the baseline? When is the best time to come forward? So it probably also resonated with you a little bit too, because it almost created like a, a little bit of a scientific approach to maybe playing the game. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. It made sense. I needed someone just to make sense to me. And, I think, it's when you put facts in front of someone, it's very hard to negate that. And I think maybe I was one of those people. I needed the why. And so I think that's why it really resonated with me. And, I think too, kind of building what you said, I think there's definitely a lot of science behind it, but then when it comes to tennis teaching, there's art. So I think it's having that base of knowledge, but then it's how you then get that message across. I mean, I often look at it like this, as a tennis instructor, this is the analogy. It's like an iceberg where beneath the surface, that's the bulk of the knowledge, but the student just sees what's, breaching the surface of the water. And I think that's the ability to really draw deep when you need to, but also to not to overwhelm the student, but to give them the right information at the right time. I think that's where the art comes in. And I think as a young coach, I think I was guilty of, trying to expose too much of the iceberg. But now as I'm getting, more experienced, I find it's really diving deep and really trying to pinpoint that primary flaw, which often knocks out a lot of other sort of underlying issues. So I think that's really where the art starts to come through. And it takes, I think you have information, experience, and with that, then you start to grow with wisdom. And that's hopefully where I'm heading to now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for your story's so cool, Craig, with your mom and just the whole journey. And I resonate a lot with like the tip of the iceberg analogy. It just set my mind going in a lot of different directions because it's exactly that. It's like, what's that right amount that's like not too much, not too little. Like, you can't just stay completely in the comfort zone. There's no growth. But if you push too far past into too much discomfort too fast, you'll get that protective response kicking in, and then there won't be the learning and the growth. So it's like finding that just right amount and how to best, communicate that using all the tools and skills available.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly right. I think too, that's also where the teaching aids also, just to loop that back in, become really important because I think so much of tennis, it's counterintuitive. Um, and yeah, I can get into all the details, but I mean, the way we see the court, I mean, we see through the net and people play tennis like this, so you can't see my arms because that's what they see. But really, you've got to play tennis this way because we have to overcome that obstacle, which creates optical illusions. And, like your net extender that we used to use so much in Atlanta with Ashley, we have to hit over the net, the extra nets. I mean, all of these great tools. Yeah, and it's as you say, it's counterintuitive. A lot of playing great tennis, or should I say? So yeah, it's great to be able to combine with the things that you did on court, off court.
That's great. Now, I'd like to go back a little bit to what you mentioned about online tennis instruction, OTI. You kind of discussed how it's like, okay, you've got a library of, I'm sure drills and exercises and, different things like that. But then you also incorporate kind of the individual feedback. So I guess your students, they're recording maybe their serve, forehand, various strokes. And then coaches like yourself are analyzing and basically prescribing some of the right courses. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, I like that's nice use of the word prescribing. But yeah, definitely, they send in videos. Usually we do the serve because the serve is one of those things. I think it's probably one of the most difficult things in sports, and we'll get into the details about that. But I think a lot of coaches shy away from teaching the serve because of that. But I think people get to that point where, okay, I need something more. Like I'm getting the serve in, but it's getting attacked or whatever. And then they often most of the time we get serves and we work them through progression. So we'll film and say, look, this is the most important thing for you to focus on now. And then we direct them to a video within the course, which they have. And then, we're now moving to something where they can send multiple reviews. so that then you can then build it on a step-by-step basis. Because, we used to just do one video review. And then also part of me was like, I want to help you. So I'm going to tell you 3 things because this is your only one video review. But now knowing, okay, we're going to get you, you can send like up to 8 in a year, depending what kind of package you have. So
Cool.
right now, let's focus on this. And then once you get this piece, now this is the next thing for you to focus on. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. And, we've done everything from, technique to strategy to, I think every single shot that you can imagine in tennis, we have a short course on it within our membership. I think the only thing we're missing is a tweener, so maybe that's something we can work on. But every single shot you can imagine, drop shots, slices, lobs, approach shots. Just go through it. So it's really an incredible library of instruction and also progressions on how to actually build the stroke. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love that. It's such a great, balance, because that's why, we love the online aspect, right? Because you get the scalability, you get to access it everywhere, but, you lose the individual aspect of your learning. And so to be able to incorporate those two things together, I think is fantastic. And then the other thing you mentioned too, you have these in-person, I think you call them transformation clinics, right? The 1 day and the 2 day clinics. Is that right?
Yeah, so we do like a 1 day surf clinic. So we actually dedicate a day to that. And then that's usually on a Friday, and then on a Saturday, Sunday, we have a 2 day technique, which just goes through the basic strokes, the forehand, the backhand, serve, and volley. So we just kind of stick with those main strokes. Obviously, if people want something else, we can always add that to it. But that's the main things we cover. And, that's done on a weekend, a Saturday and Sunday usually. And, that gives people an opportunity to work with us in person because, people learn differently. I like to say, the online is kind of more affordable. And then the in-person, then we can give you, more live feedback and instruction, but we use video throughout. I think that's one thing where, golf is streets ahead of us in tennis, but hopefully it's catching on more in tennis. But to actually video someone and for them to see actually what they are doing, it's a game changer. I'm sorry to steal your
Yeah.
the name of your podcast, but it's a real game changer for a lot of people because it's one thing being an instructor and say this is what you're doing versus hey no, this is you and this is what you're doing. It's like seeing that like aha moment. It's interesting. I was asked just today actually, what kind of what's that moment, what really drives you as a coach? What do you enjoy most about coaching and teaching? And I said, it's like when you finally get through to someone, you say something or demonstrate it, or just, sometimes it can even be the person attending the clinic next to them. They say it, and it's just like this light bulb goes off, and it's like this aha, like suddenly, I got it. And yeah, I think that's for me, that's what really I enjoy about coaching is getting that like aha moment. So when you're in the live clinics, you of course can get that. And when you're filming these courses, you're looking at a camera and it's, you don't know what the feedback is. Are the students getting it? Are they not? But you can really read your audience when you're on the court with them, which I really enjoy. And then of course, as I said, the video component, and we show them like before we start working with them, and then we actually video them throughout. Because sometimes, people think they're doing something, and then you show them like, nope, you're not. And then they can actually make an exaggeration. And then at the end, we can always show them, improvement before and after. And then the goal is that when they leave the clinic, they have a really key understanding of what it is they got to focus on. And then most importantly, what they got to continue to do in their own training so they can build, Vic Braden would say the brain memory, but everyone calls it muscle memory, so that it can really stick and be really meaningful. So that's really like about the live instruction is that part.
That's great. I love the idea of, when you said recording yourself, it's kind of like, the whole adage of like, well, you can't know your blind spots because that's why they're blind spots, right? You don't. So there's something about just that awareness for you to actually see and be like, do I really follow through like that? Is that really where my feet are? Because you just, what you see is completely different. So I think that's a great idea about how, yeah, recording yourself and just be able to kind of look. I think it's kind of the same in anything, right? Whether you're in public speaking or like, it's like just to have that third party awareness can help a ton.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important, as you say.
Now, speaking of in
Absolutely.
person, I was on your website and I see that you have some pretty cool events. Like, for instance, March 2026 in Costa Rica. What are those things about?
Well, yeah, so those are our 5-day, call them VIP events or experiences. And this is where we try to pick, a nice, sometimes like exotic location where people will travel to for a week. Usually something different a little bit, but usually they arrive on a Sunday, and then we do tennis throughout Monday through Friday, and then they wrap up, and Saturday they travel back. But in that time, we really have a lot of quality time to work with people on the court to really try to make those breakthroughs that they otherwise might not be able to do on their own. And it's always set in a nice location. It's a different environment, so I think people are a little more relaxed, away from work and away from maybe all the things that when you are home that you end up having to do. So it's just really nice to get away, and they're really fun experiences. We have dinners together, spend a lot of time, get to know the players, get to know us. Yeah, it's just a really great learning experience. Yeah, those are great. And yeah, so
Yeah,
Costa
it looks
Rica, and
amazing.
yeah, we got some European destinations. I mean, this year we did Cyprus. They go to the Canary Islands. I think they've got Portugal coming up. So a couple of more that they're adding to it. So yeah, it's really fun.
It's yeah, it's phenomenal, and just, yeah, the whole approach, and I think that's why, it's just, speaking broadly from, my own and on-court, off-court's perspective, why we've always super enjoyed working with you in online tennis instruction. Just the value system around learning is, is in alignment, and that's something I think it's catching on, more and more, as you said, and I think I agree with what you were saying earlier related to golf, that there's still, like, if you look at what's being done in the golf world with training aids and video and all of this, it's starting to get there, but there's still a bit ahead of, where we are with tennis. But it's like, it's so helpful because everyone learns through different mediums, kinesthetic,
Hmm.
visual, auditory. There's so much now. I'm very passionate on, like, the off-court wellness side of things. I've been doing a lot of trainings in the, like, somatic world, and just that, like, really getting that felt experience of something is so different from just understanding that intellectually. You were saying when people have that aha, it's like a whole body aha. And even to what you were saying with, muscle memory, and the Vic Brain used to call it, the brain memory, and, is making my brain go off because I'm like, well, it's both, because it's like, if you're now, there's all these latest trends in neuroscience, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's the signals the brain is sending to the muscles. So it's both, it's the whole nervous system, and, what's stored there, and how, that of course can be applied to individual healing journeys, and it can also be applied to athletic performance, and being able to get the sense of, how can I hit that serve? How can I make that correction?
Yeah, yeah, it's really neat. And it's neat I see you're doing you're doing a lot of yoga as well, right? There's a lot of yeah. It's some of those poses I just can't get into. So I'm sure if you film me, I wouldn't want to see the video.
Well,
That'd be
I
like a
don't do
blackmail.
I don't do any of I don't do, like, I can't do a headstand or a handstand or crazy twists. For me, it's more just about the practices of, like, the mind body practices of getting,
Yeah,
really present for developing that inner awareness and focus, and then, ability to apply that in life, on it.
yeah. I think a lot of people will benefit from that. I mean, tennis, it's the physical. I mean, there's technical, tactical, the physical, mental, emotional, and I always throw in balance. I mean, I think that's a fifth one to throw in there. But any of that mindfulness, yoga,
Yeah.
with the mind, but also with the body. I mean, I think a lot of people can really benefit from that, and I think it extends beyond tennis, as you say. I mean, I think just in everyday life. I mean, when I do my mental toughness talks, I mean, the stuff that I teach and I've learned from others is like I apply to every step of life, and it can be applied. So those lessons really carry over. So that's great that you're really into
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it brings me back to like, just thinking of like the classic, the inner game of tennis, which is,
Yeah.
and I've just always thought, I mean, tennis as a sport, being even, of course, with doubles, you have a partner there, but it's still very individual. Like it really is this little microcosm of like getting to try out all the different areas of life. There's going to be challenges, there's going to be wins. How are you going to handle things when you're under pressure? You're still going to have that relaxed flow that you learned on your forehand or your backhand or your serve when you're under pressure, in the third set tiebreaker.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to mention as the person who has by far the least amount of tennis experience on this call, but played a little bit. One thing I noticed right away was how much tennis is like a microcosm for life.
Yeah.
And also what my life was like, how much it would affect my tennis. And it was amazing, but you got to like, you can't worry about the past. You can't worry about the things you just did. You can't be too worked about the future. You need to be completely present. You can't be, I mean, that was always the things where the more I was thinking about what already happened or what I want to happen in the future, the more I was off. But if I could just be in the moment and just remember, and that's like for me, always just creating those little mnemonic devices to get back on cue. I had my little 1, 2, 3 talks in my mind when I'm serving, or if I'm not getting, the top spin I want, you just start to kind of like, you have those, declarations almost that you're speaking over yourself. And it really, I feel like translates to a lot of success in different areas. Yeah. It's a great game. It's awesome for, actually I was going to ask that with your tennis instruction, what type of players are best for like online tennis instruction, right? I mean, is this for anybody? Should you be at a certain level? There are certain aspirations you should have?
That's a very good question. And actually, one thing I think, Billy, you kind of understated yourself. I mean, I think we were having a conversation before we hit the record here, and Billy, you started playing tennis as an adult, and you got to very respectable levels, and that's not easy to do. So I think you've definitely walked the walk there, because getting to a 4.0 when you learning as an adult, that's not no easy feat. So I know that takes a lot of hard work and dedication, and for you to be able to know to stay in the present, I wish I had known that when I was in my early 20s. So maybe it's that maturing mind, but no, that's a great summary there. What you were saying, great
Yeah.
realization.
It's a great game. I tell you, the person who taught me when I first started playing with, who, he just wanted to go out there and play. He was obviously pretty good, and I couldn't stand losing. So I'm like, that competitive juices kicked in and all the different stuff. But he used to always mess with me this way. If I was like really, let's say, serving really well, and I developed a decent serve, I could kick serve, I could go out wide, I
Wow.
could do like, a couple like things. And anytime like something was working, he would just look at me and be like, "Wow, Billy, your serve is so good today." And I was like, "Stop that! Like you're trying, don't do that to me. Like you're like no." And he would just do it. He has to have this smirky face. Wow, you're ripping that forehand today. It's like, "Shut up, Mike. Don't." All the little mind games and
It's so
sorry,
funny you bring that up. Sorry, I will come back to your question. I hope you wrote that one down. But
yeah.
so funny you said that. I was in a clinic. It was like 2 weeks ago, and we're sitting. I think we're having dinner together, and someone was saying, I can't stand it. Like, I'm playing well. We sit down, and someone goes, "Hey, your forehand is just it's so on today." And it's like my forehand. You can't make a forehand. Exactly like those mind games.
Yep, just messing with me. It was they're not. He wasn't complimenting me. He was definitely. I'm like,
Yeah,
keep your voodoo to
yeah,
yourself, bro. I don't want any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like you were in a flow state. Also, but I
yeah.
agree with Greg because Billy, we've chatted about your tennis background before, and you never shared all these things with me. You severely understated yourself. I think if you're like kick serving it and doing like
Yeah,
that's actually really good. That's like really good. Like you're like, oh yeah, I'm not very good. I played a little. Like no, like that's actually like very good.
yeah.
Especially as Greg said, like learning that as yeah, totally. Because you were in a flow state, and then he's like, "Well, let's get back into the overthinking mind. That'll get him
Yeah,
out of his, that smooth body state." So
yeah,
Yeah, and I actually picked up on that too, Kalindi, when you said a kick serve, because in my mind, because I'm teaching the serve, I'm like, the serve is probably the most difficult thing in sports. And then the kick serve is the most difficult version of a serve. So it's like, yeah, that's.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's the consistency. I think like it's funny because when you grow in anything, in any sports, I feel like it's like this. It's like obviously you start at first, you're just like so new. Then you learn certain techniques, right? Like my son's really big into soccer, right? And so it's like there's certain like foot skill moves or the ability to curl the ball or all those things, right? And like you think kick serve, top spin. I had like a one hand backhand, but I could like, unload it, but it would be like tons of back spin and kind of skip real low. And it was really cool using it cross court, all the, and then you combine it with some stuff, you learn some techniques. But I think what really separates you from being there to being like elite is your consistency, that you consistently can pull it off, that you have that thing. And that's where the consistency and effort, the head game, all the different stuff. Because yeah, I can go out there. Like actually, I just went and golfed yesterday. First time golfing in 2 years, and I hit, a few good drives. I hit a couple amazing approach shots. I made a couple good putts, and I shot 105. Why? Because I didn't do it consistently, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's why I feel like too, like a program like you have is so important because it also is like a pressure for consistency. Like you have the program, it's available. I'm invested in my learning. I'm going through the courses regularly. It gives me drills, so I'm out there and I'm hitting the serves. I'm doing the thing. I'm getting the feedback, and really to get to that next level, that is what it needs to be. It's like, yeah, you can hit some things once in a while, but are you consistently applying yourself? And that's why, again, I love what you're doing here because it creates those mechanisms to give people that consistency.
Yeah, just to pick up what you're saying about consistency, and it kind of, get into your first question where I started talking about your tennis. But, we basically, I mean, anyone and everybody wants to learn and improve the tennis games. I mean, that's who we cater towards. I mean, we have young kids, we have adults. That's probably our biggest market, but we even have some pro players, um, developing juniors, to high-level juniors. It's a very wide range. To your point on consistency, that's where having stroke consistency, and that's kind of brings back to Raven Klassen. When I called him up, I was like, Raven, I need help with tactics, and his message to me was, to execute tactics, you need technique. And that really just stuck with me because I always thought I had good technique, but I didn't realize that my back had really short hitting zones. So my ability to hit my one-handed backhand, like you, consistently well, it was a struggle. So on some days it was great because I could just time this little roll that I had, but the days I couldn't time it, I just didn't. I had this major hole, and I had to develop a consistent, certain mechanics to give me the longest possible hitting zone, so that I had this window of opportunity. I can't see me here, but it's about the width of your shoulders where the strings go to your target. So whether you're off a little bit on your timing or it's a slower shot or a different surface, you still have a very good chance of making the shot to your intended target. And I think that's the big thing that separates the best players in the world to everybody else, is the length of the hitting zones. And that's where kind of coming back to video, there's so much stuff on, you can see so much now on YouTube of pros in slow motion, and you can see everything and anything. But the thing is that it's what to look for when you really slow it down and you look at the point of contact. Vic Braden, they're 95% biomechanically the same. And then what happens through the hitting zone, you'll see their body stops, and it's just the arm that continues going out to the target. Now that's the length of the hitting zone. That's the effortless power. It's like a whipping effect. Mm. So to develop the consistency, it's having the consistency of the strokes, developing in practice, so that is the stroke that always comes out. And that's really the key to performing well. You have these weapons that give you the highest probability of making the shot, and then you combine it with sound, high percentage decision making, and of course, you said good mental toughness.
It's amazing. Well, I don't know about everybody else who's going to watch this, but I am like juiced to get back playing. Like I'm like, what did I do? Why have I've been taking a few years off now, and I feel like I need to get back out there. I'm all fired up.
That's right. I put those golf clubs back in the closet and get the tennis rackets out, man.
Yeah,
we can hook you up with some good training aids and some
Yeah,
video
yeah, I know some
instruction.
people. I know some people.
Yeah, you got to use your connections, yeah, man. Kalindi is really generous in sending stuff over
Oh,
for us to try.
she's blessed me many times, so Kalindi takes good care of me.
Thank you, Kalindi.
Yeah.
So I want to share a couple of things. We've been talking a lot about the online tennis instruction. This is the website, onlinetennisinstruction.com. And so we got a video you could watch here. Obviously, get your link to the digital coaching as well as in-person clinics. So everybody who's watching, make sure you head over to onlinetennisinstruction.com. As you see, if you can also check out the 1-day clinic, 2-day clinic, and then these amazing experiences that I already mentioned. I got my eyes on Costa Rica. So I got a few months to get myself rolling here so I can go hang out with Greg in Costa Rica. And while we have the screen shared, I want to bring up another listings here. So this is the serve stand on the OnCourtOffCourt.com. I would love, and maybe Kalindi, can you tee us off a little bit about this product, kind of how it came about, and then Greg, I'd love to hear your take on everything serve stand.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, this product is really unique as, as many of our viewers know, we've talked about this. We've had Joe Dinoffer as, a guest, of course, and, the inventor of the different training aids. And that's always been kind of that's where OnCourt OffCourt started. Yes, we've expanded into other court equipment and things, but really the training aids and accelerating the learning and the kinesthetic aspect has been so important. And this product is really unique because it's like been a collaboration between us at OnCourt OffCourt with Joe Dinoffer and with Florian and Greg at Online Tennis Instruction. Basically, this is probably at this point a few years back, Florian approached Joe and was like, "Hey, I have this idea for, a training aid. Like, do you think this is something that would be possible to build? We think that our membership, our players would really value and would benefit it." And then it basically, without getting into all of the little details, but as Greg was, mentioning earlier, when it comes to the product development phase, it's not so easy to just be like, "Oh yeah, here's the idea, and then next month, we have a product." It went through many different phases of testing and prototyping, and because we only launch a product when we feel like it's really ready, it's high quality, and it's ready for, everyone to use and enjoy and learn from. And yeah, that's basically the serve stand and these lovely pictures and videos that you'll see. Greg is explaining and showing how to use it. And it's awesome. Basically, it's the idea is, the toss is one of and I'm sure Greg is going to share this much more eloquently, but as many of our viewers will, I'm sure, relate to, whether they're players or, coaches working with players, the toss and the serve is one of the hardest elements. Like you can control it, unlike the opponent hitting it to you, but it sounds really simple. Yeah, it's easy to place the toss perfectly, but it's much easier said than done. So this training aid takes that element out of it so that you can focus on all the other complicated elements on the serve and get that feeling, that fluidity, and then you can, apply it and practice your toss and put it all together.
Yeah, that's awesome. I could definitely see the value. Greg, would you explain a little bit more about like the mechanics of it, and then especially maybe how like you're recommending it to students and ways they can use it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Kalindi, I think you explained it really eloquently about the serve. But I'll pick up from that. And, I think, you see the training aid and it's, I think, the serve, I think we can, a lot of people would agree that the serve is probably one of the most difficult things in sports. I mean, you think about, you got to, as Kalindi was saying, you have to coordinate the ball toss, put it in a pretty consistent position. You have to have, then you have to coordinate the hitting arm. You got to hit it over the net, which is, at the lowest point, 3 feet high. You can't really see the target over the net. So it's a small target. It's 13.5 by 21 feet, length and with the width of it. And you got an opponent there that's looking to set up and crush your serve. So you got all these elements and makes it a very difficult thing. So by having the serve stand, we're finally, we can take the toss part out of the equation, because a lot of people, they struggle with getting the feeling of what it feels like to, work through the arm mechanics and actually hit the ball. There are other devices out there where the ball, it kind of stays in the string, it spins. But it is a very different feeling. Having hit served on the serve stand is very different when you actually can hit it versus a ball that's attached to something. So I think to give people the opportunity to work on something that is very difficult, initially take the toss out of the equation and start to feel, what the arm mechanics that you're working on, what it feels like when you do hit the ball. And I think that's something which, people, it's a feedback we get from a lot of people. That's kind of where, Florian and I spoke about this idea is that people say to the clinic, "Sir, this is great, but I wish I could, I'm getting it with my shadow, but I would love to just have the ball there so I can feel what this feels like when I'm hitting." So, then the mechanics of it is, as Kalindi said so eloquently, is that, you can work on the ball toss individually. You can then work on the arm mechanics with the serve stand, and then you coordinate the two, you put the two together. I think that's, the way to go about it. So I think you don't want to completely negate the ball toss. And also, one thing I would suggest is when you are working the serve stand, you work the ball toss individually if you're having that issue. You work on the arm mechanics, but you also want to dedicate some of that practice where you try and hit the serve. Even if it goes totally wrong, at least you're kind of preparing yourself for when that ball is there. So you don't go, you don't want to go weeks and months without ever hitting the ball, and it's two completely different things. So that's one thing I would say is that you want to be, just try a couple, even if it's not perfect. And then as far as like the setup goes, it's it was interesting, receiving a product. Normally, actually, I don't normally read instructions, so I get myself in a lot of trouble. When Kalindi and Victoria, they sent me the serve stand, and they said, "Okay, here it is. You know, figure out how to put it together and take some shots of it." And I was like, "Yes, got it. This is a challenge. I loved it." So I got to like figure out how to put this thing together. And I think there's more than one way to do it, but I felt this was the safest way. And when I put it together, it takes me less than 3 minutes. Probably the first time will take a little bit longer, like anything. But you don't have to use a tennis court. You could set this up. If you've got space at home in a backyard. Some people have nets they serve into, so you could set it up like that. Simple thing we've done is people have like hung like blankets, and they just literally serve into the blankets. So there are many. You can be very creative at home as well. If you don't, if you don't have unable to transport to a court, you just want to have it at home. So I do think you can practice using it in many different settings and scenarios.
And so so this ball that I should since I'm the one that markets these things, I should probably know more about it. Um, but so the ball you can actually hit it. That's amazing. So it comes right off of the application right here.
Yeah, so I probably should have brought that piece with me, but it has a little Velcro. It's a string, and it has a piece of Velcro, and then you simply just attach the ball to the Velcro.
Great.
So then when you hit it, it releases the ball. And yeah, surprisingly, I think the first one I hit, it went over the net. It might have been out, but it was pretty close to being in. But it was a strange feeling. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, and that's
And
amazing
then you
because
get used to it. I was like, oh.
right, because then you can change the angle and everything. Like, so we're talking about different serves, like kick serves, this and that. Like, well, you want to toss the ball in different places depending on how you want to hit it, low, driven, wide, kick. And so you can kind of reposition it. So then you're giving yourself even that target. You're like, yeah, hey, every time you want to do a kick serve, you got to toss it here in order to get that spin and that bite when you hit it. And so you can give someone like a mental image of where that ball should be going on a regular basis.
100%. It's spoken like a true tennis player, man.
Well, it's good
Yeah,
because
no,
it's cool.
100%.
You can always leave it up there as a target without even having the ball on there, and you'd be like, "Hey, you got to get the ball to that spot. That's your best spot to go in attack."
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so interesting too, when I first got it, Florida was discussing it, can we hit a slice serve? Can we hit a kick serve? And I went out and tested it, and I was really surprised. I mean, I could get the ball to kick, I could get the ball to slice. And I think the other thing too, because the ball's not moving, you can actually, actually really even just slow it down. Like I mean, this is the thing about learning, and I think, tennis is it's a skill, and it's kind of learned like it can be learned like playing music or martial arts. do it slowly, and then you speed it up. I mean, we have a lot of professional musicians that we teach, and I've done martial arts, and I'm well familiar with martial arts. But you do things really slowly. But when you got a ball that's kind of hanging there, you can position yourself correctly for the kick serve. There's a difference. But also you can kind of very slowly kind of figure out the angle of attack and then what's kind of happening through contact. So you can really understand the movements and then begin to speed it up. Yeah, I mean, it's so versatile. And something we didn't include in there, I was playing around with it, and you can actually lower it and you can set it up to hit ground strokes. I mean, it might put a little more stress on the machine, but on the stand. But it was interesting too. There was a stationary ball, and I had some fun working on serve returns, and could do volleys. So yeah, there's a lot more uses for it, use cases for it, should I say?
So yeah,
Awesome.
it's I think, and we get that so often with different training aids that people will be like, "Hey, like I was using it like this. Is that okay?" And I'm like, "Well, how did it land for you?" And it's like, "Great, wonderful, it works."
Yeah, my son.
Say, imagine. Oh, sorry,
No,
Billy.
please go ahead, Greg.
I was gonna say, imagination is greater than knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my son's converted the Rebounder Deluxe into his soccer training aid.
Awesome.
You know
all about it, right?
On it. He smashes that soccer ball against the net. It a little different impact than a tennis ball. But yeah, what
funny.
a great product. What a cool way you get to collaborate. And I know Joe pretty well, and this is the type of stuff where there's needs, there's real coaches. That's what I love about even when I talk with Joe, it's like where did all these tennis training aids come? Because he was a coach working with real players who saw real needs, and he's trying to create some devices because it's one thing to say something, but it's another thing when those words translate into a kinetic activity and you repeat and you get the feedback from it and you see it. Like even going back to this with a kick serve, a lot of times you got to feel it. Well, if you can never get the toss in the right place, you can never get the racket in the right place, and you don't ever get it, this way you can cheat, like, oh, wait, there it is. I feel it. I got it. That creates those epiphany moments like you're mentioning. So I think this is fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking for myself, like I learned to kick serve when I was a teenager, thanks to one of our original training aids, the Spin Doctor, which, we now have the Top Spin solution, which is kind of like the 2.0 version. So you can practice on your own. But my dad was my coach, and he would hold it up there and, spin, and then you try it out and spin. And, now I could imagine this. I didn't have this serve stand then, but I could imagine this progression with okay, get the feel for the spin, then try it out with the serve stand, and then put it all, do a few practice tosses and then put it all together. And, I was as I've shared with, Billy before in some other talks, I'm not the natural athlete type. So having these training aids is very helpful to get that embodied feeling sense, which is, what we're all striving for in sports and really in life too.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more enjoyable when, we're in that flow state.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So everybody's watching, go to oncourtoffcourt.com/serve-stand, or just search for serve stand when you're on the site, and you can get it here. And what a great product. That's awesome. Well, Greg, I want to shift a little bit here before we close. So I always ask all this. I always ask all of the instructors who we get a chance to coach on here, or to get a chance to chat with on the GameChangers podcast. But how often are you playing right now?
Oh man, I would love to say I'm playing every day. I teach every day. I probably work every day. Sometimes I get to hit. I'm unfortunately I'm not very careful with my body. I throw myself around, so I have a lot of injuries here and there from different activities. But when I'm healthy, I have some students, who I'll get out and play points with. Actually, a friend of mine, he actually just built a tennis court, so he has his live ball every Thursday night. So when I'm in town, I'll try to make it out there. We just have a lot of fun. I as I say, I teach probably every day of the week. Some weekends I'm off, and within those lessons, I'm hitting. But if I could get to play, Steve would always say a set a day of tennis, then I'll be really happy. I just truly love to hit the tennis ball. It's talk about being present. It's something I've done my whole life that, when I'm on the court there and playing, you just forget about everything. It kind of reminds me of surfing or anything like that. You're just kind of in that moment. So yeah, so I don't play enough.
Well, and that's the story we always hear. It's kind of the adage, right? It's like I played, I love the game, I learned some things, and now I'm able to impart it to others. But then it's kind of like the chef who it's hard to come home and cook for the family because it's like this is what I've been doing all day long, and it kind of has that dynamic to it. But yeah, no, I love what you're doing. I love what online tennis instruction's doing. It's pretty cool. We're actually neighbors too, so maybe we'll have to get together sometime. I'm gonna have to get out there and shake some rust off. And
There you go, man. Yeah, let me know.
but
Meet
yeah.
at HCC. It's about halfway.
All right, there we go. That's awesome. But yeah, this has been a really great conversation. I really appreciate your time, Greg, and I'd love to do this again in the future. I'm sure Kalindi would too if you're available in the
Absolutely.
future. But
Yeah, I'd love to.
yeah, this is awesome. And so please make sure to check out Florian and Greg and everybody going over at onlinetennisinstruction.com. Get yourself a serve stand. And yeah, thank you both for joining us on another OnCourt OffCourt Game Changer.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Billy. Thanks, Greg. It's been a lot of fun, and thanks to everyone for watching and being part of the conversation.
Yeah, Billy and Kalindi, thanks for having me on. This has been fun, and I look forward to the next time. And yeah, thanks to everybody for watching. And yeah, thanks for collaborating with the serve stand. All
Awesome.
right, take care, everybody.
We'll see you guys next time on OnCourt OffCourt Game Changers. Take care.